Hi, everybody. This is Susan Proper with Susan Gets Social. Good for you to be here with me today, and I'm happy to be here with you today. We have a guest coming to join us this morning, Monette Chilson, and I have been a follower of and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but I say Monet. She could say Monette. I'm not sure, but she can correct us if I'm saying it wrong. So Monet is an author, and she is a women's advocate. She's also a yoga fan, which is how I first got connected with her, and she's here on the live, but now she just needs to click that little button. Oh, they changed it now. It's not two smiley faces, it's two little people on the bottom. So she'll be joining us and talking to us about her book. And she's got lots going on. Wow. Lots going on. I'm looking at her Instagram profile, and she's got a blog, she's got a podcast, she's got, this book that she's written, which is really interesting. Okay, I think she is connecting with us. Here she comes. And so she's got this book that she's written. There she is.
Hey!
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. Now, so the first thing I have to do, because I've already mentioned your name, and I don't know that I'm pronouncing it correctly. I say Monet, but
it is Monette.
Monette. Okay.
Yes.
Well, that must be my my art history background coming up when I say Monet.
I get that a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure
Yep.
you do. Yeah. Okay. So Monette. So Monette Chilson, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten. You're in the Midwest somewhere.
I'm in Texas.
Texas.
Part of the year, and North Carolina part of the year.
Okay. Yeah, because I see on your pictures that you're back and forth. And I'm like, okay, where?
I am, and I'm in a new house now, so I'm kind of walking around to find the best signal.
Oh, okay.
So I think this is good.
You have lots of windows, so you have good light. That's for sure.
I do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I was explaining that we have never actually met or spoken in person before, and but I have followed you on Instagram, I would say for a couple of years now anyway.
Yeah.
And I think probably why I first started to follow you, like I start to follow a lot of people initially, is because of yoga. Being a yoga teacher, that's sort of like, oh, yoga. And I get kind of interested in people. But along the way, I got really intrigued with you, Monette, because of your other interests and your other activities. And I found out that there's a lot more going on with you than just yoga. Not that you're not a yoga lover, but you're not a yoga teacher, from what I recall. You're just a yoga fan, right?
People ask me that, and I always kind of hesitate because I feel like I teach the philosophical and like live your yoga part of yoga. I don't teach asana, but I do workshops directly from like using yogic wisdom in our lives. And that's what I write about a lot too. So.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
God, I'm going to learn so much today. I'm so excited. Oh, that's great. So how many books have you written?
I've written 2 books myself, and then I edited an anthology for the same publisher as one of my other books. I don't know if you're familiar with Trista Hendren. She has a company called The Girl God. So I call it a micro publisher. She started with her own book, I don't know, 10 years ago, called The Girl God. And she publishes probably about, I don't know, 6 books a year or something. And they all have to do with feminine empowerment messages, most often through kind of the forgotten archetypes. So I did, and her kind of pattern is she does a children's book. So I wrote My Name is Lilith to reclaim that story of that strong original woman. And then she and I together solicited essays from women all over the world. I think we had 45 countries represented. And along with Trista, I edited that anthology, which is the one that's been out most recently.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So the My Name is Lilith is the one that I guess I am familiar with.
Okay.
But it sounds to me like I really need to become more familiar with that entire series because that sounds extremely interesting. You know, and I want to kind of focus on what you're doing and your writing and everything. And from what I'm looking on your profile here, my God, you got a lot going on. But when I just want to take one little segue here, when I am coaching or when I am teaching, I always talk about women's empowerment, you know, because not that I spent my life feeling unempowered, but I came to a certain point in my life where I realized that had I been more empowered, I would have made different choices in my life. And not that I regret choices that I've made, but I just know that I probably would have chosen more wisely about certain things, right? And maybe made braver choices, I guess, right?
Yes.
You know, and I think that's something that probably a lot of women struggle with is being brave and having courage.
Exactly.
And that's that whole empowerment thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, like I said, I looking through your profile and having followed you for some time, I was especially intrigued by this whole Lilith thing. Because, and I love the goddesses. I just love the goddesses, but I have always followed more like the traditional yoga. Okay, you follow the Hindu goddesses, you follow Durga and Kali and, you know, Shakti and all the, you know, the Hindu.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw you on your profile talking about Lilith, and I was like, Lilith, who the heck is Lilith? I never heard of Lilith. And that name actually never really meant a whole lot to me until, you know, I saw that character on TV, Lilith. And that was probably the only other time I ever heard that name. So how did you get into this whole, you know, studying well, I don't know what other goddesses you've gotten into, and there's probably a whole lot more that you've researched and done, but how did you get into this?
Okay, well, my very first book, it's so much fun to look back on our journeys. You know, my very first book, I wanted to explain yoga. I grew up in Texas, so I live in the Bible Belt, and there's a whole heck of a lot of misinformation and crazy ideas that are tied into religious beliefs here. So I wanted to take yoga and demystify it and show how it's a spiritual practice that is compatible with any or no religion.
Yes.
So that's what I did in my first book. I didn't know that I was going to tie it into like a feminine part of God, but as I was writing the over a number of years, because I had a child in the middle of that, I realized that there needed to be a feminine part of God. So I just started looking and searching, and I didn't want to just pick something random. And I ended up with Sophia, which is wisdom in the Bible. So Sophia is Greek for wisdom.
Okay.
And in the original translations, she's more of an embodiment, but as the years went on and men translated and retranslated, it became just this sort of concept like wisdom, or I joke in my book, that first book, sounds like a Scooby-Doo character, Lady Wisdom. Like you picture this like gypsy kind of woman, not like a serious, like this is the real deal. Like this Sophia, this thing inside you that you feel when you get still and quiet. So Sophia ended up being, my first book is called Sophia Rising, Awakening Your Sacred Wisdom Through Yoga. So
Wow.
that idea is like the most innermost feminine knowing I explored in that book. And I have always and forever been interested in the lost stories of women because so many of them are lost. So I saw that Trista, who I met after, I think our first books came out at the same time. And I saw she had done a book called My Name is Medusa. And it was about reclaiming. We think of Medusa as this crazy ass woman with snake hair, and there's nothing like admirable about her. So
Right.
reclaim this in a children's book, right? So children start off with an empowered understanding of these stories. And something in me, when I saw that, I had come across Lilith in some of my research, and like a voice in my head just said, you need to write a book about Lilith that explains that it's okay to have a voice and say no, even if everyone else is mad at you and you get kicked out of the garden. So I texted Trista and I said, I think I need to write this book. She said, I think you do too. How soon can you write it? And we're going to make this a whole series. So since then she's launched into, I don't know, she's probably done a dozen with different writers. So that's how I happened upon that.
Wow. So I'm kind of a little bit overwhelmed here with this all this information, because that's amazing. I mean, first of all, I guess I didn't realize the depth, and I have to claim ignorance here, and I'm a little embarrassed. I didn't realize all that you had written, and I didn't realize the wisdom that's out there between you and these other authors and these publishers about non-traditional, I guess I want to say, the non-traditional way to look at religion and goddesses and lifestyle and yoga all into one. And yeah, I think I'm a little overwhelmed with that. Wow. But that is an amazing journey that you've taken. Because, like, what is your background? What were you doing before you started writing these stories?
I was in public relations. I did everything from I was PR manager at Time Warner Cable. I worked for an agency, and then I worked for myself for about 10 years. And I had clients all over the country. And then after I had my second child, I almost got to a breaking point. Like I was trying to juggle so much between my first child, my business, my daughter, and I just kind of threw up my hands and said, I'm done with PR. I don't know what comes next, but I can't keep doing this. And the idea for Sophia Rising had been in the back of my mind, but I didn't have time to get to it. So I got to it then. And
Wow.
yeah. And I have a master's in communications.
Wow.
I did my thesis, not surprisingly, on the Miss America pageant and the deconstruction of gender identity in the United States. So
Wow.
I've always been interested. Like as a kid, my dad like will roll his eyes and tell this story. I came in like with my hands on my hips when I was 7. And I said, I don't understand why boys can go outside without their shirts on and I can't because I look just like them on the top. And he was like, oi, this is going to be a hard road with this one. So I just always asked those questions and demanded, different answers.
Yeah. Well, that's when it starts, right? When
Yeah.
you're a little kid and you have these questions, and it's really, that's when you start to get swayed to this path or that path or this path, with the best of intentions, really, with love and the best of intentions. But that's when the empowerment either begins or it doesn't, right?
Right. That's why I love that we're doing these children's books, because there's something about giving kids the stories when they're little, then they don't have to unpack the baggage. Like they've packed their bag correctly the first time. So, yeah.
So now you mentioned that Medusa book. That Medusa book was for kids?
Oh, yes. And My Name is Lilith. That's the pattern. It's like a children's book and then an anthology. And so the anthology for Lilith, I got to name it, and I love the name. It's Original Resistance, Reclaiming Lilith, Reclaiming Ourselves.
Mm.
It's the idea, like for those of you who maybe don't know Lilith's story, I'll do it in a little nutshell because I think
Yes, please tell us, because until I met you, I never knew Lilith even existed.
oh my gosh, it is the most profound story that I still can't believe has been hidden. So if you look back at, the traditional Genesis story, there are actually two creation stories at the beginning. And it was very confusing. Like it says, men and women were made from the earth. And then in a few, verses later, it says woman was made from man's rib. And you're like, wait a minute, they were already made from the earth. What's up with that? And I love that the Jewish rabbis had a tradition, the midrashic explanations. They would go in, and when there was confusing things and people didn't know how to take it, they would explain it. So in one of their explanations, they said, well, you see, the first woman who was made from the earth that was equal with Adam, that was Lilith. She would not submit. She wanted to have her own voice. And she was, depending on what story you hear, she was expelled from the garden. She left the garden. God banished her or sent her or whatever. From that point on, if you look up Lilith now, she truly became demonized. Like she became synonymous with, if you look up images, you'll see a lot of demons. And it astounds me that she was demonized for the simple act of saying, no, I think I have a voice. I would like to be your equal. I would like to do this together. That's all. So you extrapolate this now, women in the Supreme Court, in, Congress, using their voices, they are immediately demonized. They are the bitch.
Quite often, yeah.
It goes back to that time. All she did was claim her full personhood, and she was demonized for it. So in the story, the way in the children's book especially, I explain it very simply, and that it was very hard for her. And, she didn't take this lightly, but she knew that the truest part of herself would die if she stayed there. So she used the word that God gave her, the ineffable word that could not be spoken. And she was whisked away, and she was sad for a while. And then it goes on, and it says, how will you know that that my spirit's still alive? And it says, you'll know every time you see a woman who stands up when someone says she should sit, and who speaks when someone says she should be quiet, that the spirit of Lilith is alive in those of us who say, no, I'm going to participate.
Wow.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg, right? She was a absolute Lilith.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, it's so amazing to hear this story. Like I said, I had never heard of Lilith ever. And which just goes to show that the Catholic Church, which I was brought up Catholic, I don't practice Catholic religion. I don't practice religion at all, really, at all now. But when I was growing up, went to Catholic school, and, that whole sort of ritual and education. The Catholics did it even one better. They took her out of the book completely, right? There's no anything until, God made man and woman and took the rib out of Adam. Mm-hmm. There's no mention of anything prior to that in the Old Testament.
Yep.
And supposedly the Old Testament is based on or part of the Jewish books.
Oh, it's the Torah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
So,
yeah.
So yeah, the Catholic Church picked and chose what they wanted.
Yes. I mean, I think in general, that's the process that holy books go through. People get to, over the centuries, cull out what doesn't work and what doesn't serve purposes. And unfortunately, we're human. So there's political purposes, there's cultural things, there's a lot of reasons things get left in and left out that have nothing to do with what God was originally trying to communicate to us through these stories.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't grow up Catholic. I say I'm a recovering Baptist. I grew up Southern Baptist. Ooh. But one thing I'm interested in, and I don't know how far I'm going to take it yet, but Trista has talked to me about doing Mary, doing Mother Mary as an empowered story. So I was in France last year, and I'm also very interested, as you know, most of us are right now, in intersectionality between, you know, race and religion. So I knew there was a Black Madonna in Paris, and it was not easy to find at all. I had to take an Uber. The Uber was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I walked around. I finally found this convent that had a beautiful little chapel. And I sat, you know, there was no one in there. I sat with the Black Madonna and bought a little, you know, medallion thing. But I'm intrigued. I will not say I'm an expert and I don't know a lot about Mary, but I think there's a lot there that could be explained.
Yeah. There's again, having been brought up Catholic, and you know, I'm not trying to get into a whole religious conversation here, but there is so much about Mary. You know, I have an art degree and I studied a lot of art history, and it's just incredible. Even if you just look at her from an art history perspective, the amount of information about Mary, there's basically 3 Marys. It's phenomenal. It's really phenomenal. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Yeah, what the church has done with women over the centuries. But I guess we have to be open-minded about where we are now versus where we were then, and you know, just say thank God, or the universe, that things have changed and things are improving and things are better. But yeah, it's always interesting to look back over where it was and how far we've come from then, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
So I know you have a podcast. I see something on your Facebook, not your Facebook, on your Instagram, that about a podcast. Is that your own podcast, or?
I think what you might have seen, the one I was on most recently, is another fabulous woman who you might want to interview. Monica Rogers runs the Revelation Project. And I was on her podcast. Probably that was the last one I was on. So maybe I was promoting that.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure. Because you've got a lot on here. I guess maybe these are interviews that you had about something about a radio show. And
I think so. It's that link tree.
Yeah, link tree. I got to get that on my my Instagram too, because you always have a lot of information and you don't know how to get it out there to everybody.
That's right.
So next up, you think you're going to do something about Mary, maybe?
Well, okay, 2 things. Tristan wants me to do something about Mary, and there's another thing that also involves Mary that is the thing that probably my heart is calling me to write, and I'm more scared to write. I saw one of my friends from the Valley was on here. I grew up in the Valley down in South Texas, which is kind of a different part of the world. It's primarily Hispanic, and so primarily Catholic. And I think there's a story to be told, but I think it's best told in a novel, like a multi-generational, how the Hispanic and the Anglo population, the power has shifted, the cultural dynamic shifted. There was a lot of, like there was Jim Crow in the South that everyone is, you know, familiar with African Americans. There was, it was kind of jokingly called Juan Crow. I mean, my parents are in their late 70s, and my parents can remember going to the movie theater and the Hispanic kids had to sit in the balcony. My mom can remember going to a restaurant and seeing a sign. I mean, as offensive as this is, we have to remember where we came from, that said, no Mexicans or dogs allowed.
Oh, God.
And this is not that long ago. So I think there's a story to be told. And I want to bring in Our Lady, that idea of Our Lady of Guadalupe. I want to bring in the mystical feminine, but also the people and the place and the unique dynamics. So that is what I'm most scared to write. Probably means that is what I need to write. My friend Claudette Brown says hi. She's from the Valley. So yeah, so that is what I need to write. I just need to be brave. Like you said, like sometimes make those brave choices.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they do. That's what the saying is, right? Do what scares you the most. Right?
Exactly. And that I would love to do Mary, and I know how to do that, and I know how to research. and it's not controversial, or, you know, I guess at this point, goddesses don't feel controversial to me anymore. But writing that perspective, especially being not Hispanic, I have to be very careful about who I give voice to, and doing it in a way that's not appropriation. And there's a lot of things about that that scare me, but I feel like I mean, I grew up there, my parents grew up there. It's kind of in my genes. And it's a story that I kind of lived, and they lived. And
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like something you need to tell, a story you need to tell. And you know, I just interviewed a woman the other day, actually, and she wrote a book that was a multi-generational story of her own family, but she wrote it kind of like fiction, you know, because part of it was very difficult, and she was concerned about certain parts of it as well. So she wrote it as fiction, but yeah, it's her family story, and she'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that definitely sounds like something you've got cracking on there.
I know.
Yeah. I just want to go back to one thing that we mentioned in the beginning, and I won't keep you too long because we're coming up on 12:26 here. Oh, okay. You said something about in the beginning about yoga philosophy in your books, right? So that's how you're teaching about yoga. So when you say that, are you like doing classes with students when you are teaching this, or are these book circles, or what are you doing with this?
Well, I'm
curious. I think maybe people would like to know.
Yeah. Obviously pandemic, you know, I haven't been doing
sure.
But I've done a lot of different iterations. Some more yoga based, some more archetype based, and some combined. I did one beautiful series. I think I did it in Highlands, North Carolina, which is where we spend part of our time. What did we call it? It was a yogic feminine archetype, a yogic exploration. So we did some breathing exercises. We did some meditations. We brought in the essence of the goddess, but we didn't just like intellectualize it. We kind of moved through it. We did some playing with poses, like, you know, this goddess, let's brainstorm, what does she embody and how could we embody that? So sometimes it's things like that. I've done Lilith circles.
Wow.
And actually there was a group, it's so exciting, like for a writer to see. I am not on Facebook, but my publisher was like, Monette, there's like a Lilith circle in, I don't know, Philadelphia or, you know, Pennsylvania somewhere. And they've been doing it. I put together a curriculum, and do I have it on? I had it on my website. I think I still do. Tristan and I are talking about making it into a curriculum people can take and do on their own, but we were making it available for free. And it's a 9-week program you can do with a group of women. And you buy the book, the Original Resistance Anthology, and it'll have you read certain passages and meditate and ask these questions and journal about this. So the Lilith circles, I've done different yogic, never a straight yoga class, but more like how to live your yoga. It seems like I did a 9-week series. I always end up with these 9 weeks right after Sophia Rising came out. I don't know. Just about anything that involves taking your yoga off the mat and feminine archetypes, I've combined it in some way into a workshop.
That's fabulous. That's really fabulous. Okay, so okay, I know that was all pre-pandemic. We're in pandemic. You're not doing anything virtual.
I haven't.
No.
Okay. But I've been doing one thing. I teamed up at the very beginning of the pandemic with my Ayurveda doctor and my yoga teacher. So the three of us, we were doing it daily because everyone was so freaked out when the pandemic started. We were doing a 20-minute wellness check-in for women.
Okay.
We cut it down to times a week, and now we're doing it on Wednesdays. So I do lead that. And if anyone is interested, it's 20 to 30 minutes. Since we're just doing it once a week now, it was 30 minutes yesterday. I led it. We rotate leading it, and you get all kinds of wisdom about yoga, breath, Ayurveda. I'm kind of the wild card because you never know what I'm going to bring when I teach. But if you direct message me, I can give you the Zoom for that. It's a free thing. We're just doing it as a kind of a community service.
Okay, that sounds fabulous. And your handle is Monette. Got that right. Chilson, Chilson. So,
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. And there was one last thing that was flying through my head I wanted to ask you. Okay. So let's just hope for the day we're post-pandemic and we're kind of like getting back to normal. Can people sort of reach out to you maybe about doing things with you the way it was kind of before?
Absolutely. I am always open to coming to a group, customizing a presentation. It can be on Lilith, it can be on Sophia, it can be on how to use yoga in your everyday life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Okay.
you need
Well,
something.
I can't tell you how much I've learned just during this little 30-minute conversation about Lilith and Sophia. I know there was always this connotation, this religious connotation about the name Sophia. I've been to Hagia Sophia in Turkey.
I thought it. I want to.
Oh my God, it's just a fabulous place. You need to get there. But you just never can stop learning, right? You always need to learn, and there's always so much to learn. But today I have learned so much, and I have got to get some of your books and maybe your study guide. And when you do that Lilith circle, I'm losing my earpiece here. When you do that Lilith circle again, yeah, I definitely want to participate in that. It sounds pretty amazing.
Keep you posted.
Yeah. What? What'd you say?
I said, I will keep you posted.
Oh, I thought you said if you host it. And I was like, what now? No. Yes, keep me posted. Thank you.
I will.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And don't forget, if anybody listening right now wants to DM Monette on her Instagram profile, it's Monette Chilson. Okay. Yeah. And this will be on IGTV for anybody who missed the beginning.
Okay. And I want to say one thing because I saw my 17-year-old son jumped on. I don't know if he's still on, but hi, Jack.
Oh, okay. Thanks so much.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Well, I have lost my earpiece, but that's okay. Such a wonderful interview with Monette. Saying that correctly. I was saying it incorrectly earlier. God, I can't believe all that interesting information about Lilith and Sophia and her books and that series of children's books. My gosh, what a wonderful thing. Really check out her Instagram profile for more information. I know that I'm going to be buying some books. It sounds pretty amazing to me. Thanks again for joining me. And if you are interested in learning more about me and my yoga teaching, I teach yin yoga. I also teach yoga nidra and aromatherapy, or my holistic life coaching. Please DM me. I'm happy to talk with you. We can chat either through Instagram or through a clarity call. Happy to talk with you. And I thank you so much for joining me today. And also don't forget to check out my brand new podcast, Women Inspired to Wellness. It's available, coming to you from Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and all the other ones too. Thank you. I really appreciate your support and your generosity in sharing your time with me today. It means a lot. And I hope you enjoyed the talk with Monette. Yes, Monette. Chilson. I always want to say Monet. That's the art major in me. Thanks, guys. Bye.